right. Chair now lays out House Bill 3729. Recognizes Chair Bonin to explain the measure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. After the Santa Fe school shooting, many of the kin of those who were killed or seriously injured requested to view the evidence in order to gain closure. However, under current law, a voluntary disclosure of evidence to the next of kin would require the evidence to be disclosed to the public. In addition to that, I would share with you that approaching 5 years since this incident, there has been no trial because the defendant has been deemed not competent to stand trial. So family members and the victims have not had any opportunity to have access or information that would have otherwise been revealed in a public trial. So House Bill 3729 seeks to resolve this issue by authorizing a prosecutor to permit certain family members, such as a parent or a spouse, to view certain evidence, namely a medical examiner's report and video evidence, without subjecting the evidence to the required public disclosure. Importantly, a prosecutor maintains discretion in permitting a person to view the evidence. House Bill 3729 prohibits a person permitted to view the evidence from duplicating, recording, or otherwise memorializing the information. Additionally, a prosecutor may require a person to sign a confidentiality agreement prior to viewing. House Bill 3729 does not affect the confidentiality of information as it pertains to state or federal law. It also does not affect currently established procedures for obtaining or using medical examiner reports or video evidence of a crime. I'm happy to answer any questions, and in the absence of questions, I respectfully ask for the right to close.
Members, any questions? All right, we'll call you back up. Chair now calls Kevin Petroff. We have you registered as Kevin Petroff, representing Galveston County Criminal DA for the bill.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I represent the office that you're going to hear some complaints and frustrations about from the families that are going to be before you today, and that is understandable. It has been very difficult, if not heartbreaking, to not be able to give these families answers to their questions, the information that they're looking for. And the reason that we can't do that really goes to the source of the problem that this bill seeks to solve. And that is that there are pretty strict ethical regulations about pretrial publicity in criminal cases. And the reasoning for that is pretty clear. It's to ensure a fair trial for both the defendant and the state. And so anything that could be made public could end up influencing potential jurors and make it very difficult to get a fair jury if they've already heard most of the evidence and made up their mind. So the rules are very restrictive in that. The way that Texas differs from them, several other states, though, is that if we were to give certain information to family members of victims that were killed, if we were to show them certain documents or videos, under Texas law, that all becomes public record, which means that we could not refuse any request to give that to media sources, television, newspapers, and the like. And that then goes back towards potentially affecting a fair trial and a fair jury panel. What this bill from Chairman Bonin does is to create a small exception to certain types of evidence in cases in which families have a deceased victim in a criminal case, that we can share some of that information with them, that we can answer some of those questions without being concerned about all of that information suddenly being public. And so we look forward to hoping this bill passes and to being able to answer some of those difficult questions and to assist those families. And we are in support of the bill. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair now calls Allison Steele. We have you registered as Allison Steele, representing yourself in favor of the bill. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. My name is Allison Steele. I am the mother of 19-year-old murder victim Kaylee Mandotti. I am representing myself and I am testifying in support of this bill. The most important thing that I ask this committee to realize is that this bill will actually help thousands of Texans to cope with the aftermath of murder. The bill may have been brought in response to a specific mass murder event, but we all face the same injustices because of the needlessly restrictive handling of criminal evidence. In our case, we had to wait 4 months to receive Kaylee's autopsy. But even then, I was given just 22 minutes to come to terms with the medical examiner's finding that she'd been brutally beaten to death. 22 minutes before that autopsy was emailed to every news organization that asked for it. The rest of Kaylee's loved ones had no time to emotionally prepare for that report. They found out what happened to Kaylee through the media. The judge with jurisdiction over that autopsy desperately wanted to handle that situation with greater respect, but her hands were tied by the way that our laws were written. When we asked our prosecutor to see other criminal evidence, including videos, we were politely told, of course, get a subpoena. We were given no opportunity to prepare emotionally for the crime-related videos that were ultimately shown in court, no opportunity to access mental health services to help us cope with that. And because our first prosecution ended in a mistrial, 5.5 years after my daughter was killed, we still have no way of finding out if additional video even exists. And that keeps me awake every night of my life. House Bill 3729 will bring some much-needed humanity to this process for all Texas murder survivors. Thank you for hearing me.
Members, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair now calls Jessica Gehring.
Oh, you said it right. I knew it was me because you took a second. With my last name.
We have you down as Jessica Gehring, representing yourself in favor of the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I also wanted to add that I am also representing the family of Brendan Truman.
Okay. We're, with your permission, going to add that you're representing the family of Brandon Truman.
Yes, please.
Okay, so we have you down as Jessica Gehring, representing yourself and the family of Brandon Truman in favor of the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Please proceed.
Thank you. As you said, my name is Jessica Gehring, and I am here in favor of the bill. I unfortunately know what it's like. My fiance was murdered in 2019, Austin Utley, and it took 128 days for us to get his autopsy, and 128 days of not knowing what he went through. When we found out he was brutally stabbed to death, we had no idea if he was aware, if he suffered, if he passed away quickly, and these were things that we thought about every second of every day. His mom knows every mark on his body. And I'm also representing the family of Brandon Truman. Brandon was murdered in October of 2021. He was shot, stripped naked, and set on fire. His mother, Jen, asks herself every night, was he alive when he was set on fire, what he went through? Having access to the autopsy would give her those answers. These here are the only answers that I have about what happened to my fiance. His murderer has never had to say one word, ever. So this is all I have, and this is all that many families will get. So I would beg the committee to please consider the impact of the victims' families.
Members, any questions? Thank you, ma'am. Chair now calls Rhonda Hart. We have you registered as Rhonda Hart, representing yourself in favor of the bill. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Please continue.
My name is Rhonda Hart, and I'm the mom of Kimberly Vaughn. Before I get to my big ask, let me tell you about Kimberly's birth. She was a planned pregnancy, and my due date was August 10th, 2003. Kimberly was born August 12 at 10:38 a.m. Kim was born at Kaiser Permanente Hospital in San Diego. Kim weighed 9 pounds, 4 ounces, and I had her naturally. It was a tough labor. Thankfully, we did well under the medical care and we were discharged. I remember everything about that birth, and Kimberly continued to thrive through her childhood. On May 18th, a gunman entered Kimberly's classroom at Santa Fe High School and shot Kimberly to death. Eventually, I wanted to know how Kim died. I called my funeral director because he had prepared for cremation. He said I should write to the Galveston County Medical Examiner, so I did. Ken Paxton sent me a letter that said I wasn't allowed to have that information because it was an ongoing investigation. I reached out to Jack Rohde to ask if he could help, and sadly he did not, and his stance has remained that way for 3 years. It is not fair to me to keep prolonging this trauma. Every step of this battle has involved inhumane treatment for me and my fellow surviving parents. I work diligently to get past the PTSD from the shooting. I go to therapy. I've done EMDR. I take daily medication. Hearing about the shooter's lack of mental stability sends me into a panic, and I regress. I have to call my therapist. I have to take my medication early. I have to limit my intake of the news. I have to sit with my dog and control my breathing. I have to fight to keep myself in the present because I have a surviving child that depends on me to survive. My ask is that you all support 3729. I know most of you are parents because I looked it up. Imagine knowing how your child was born, how they entered into this world, but not how they died, and how that would impact you. Imagine it's because a man in Austin in his office said that you can't know. Not knowing how Kimberly died keeps me awake at night. There's a chance that our judge will be recused from our case in a couple weeks. And my only hope to gain any information is through this House bill, and I desperately need your support. Thank you.
Members, any questions? Thank you, ma'am. Chair now calls Gail McLeod. We have you registered as Gail McLeod, representing yourself in favor of the bill. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Please proceed.
My son is and was Kyle McLeod. He was murdered on May 18th, and I'm just in favor of this bill. I don't have much to say because I'll probably just start bawling my head off, but I want to know how he died. I want to know what happened to him in those last minutes of his life. I do know a little bit because he was texting my daughter at the time that he was shot, and I just want to know everything that happened after we heard no more word from him. So please just listen to all of us and take it in your heart that you don't ever want to have to go through this, and if you do, you want answers. Thank you.
Members, any questions? Thank you. Chair now calls Rosie Stone. We have you registered as Rosie Stone, representing yourself in favor of the bill. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Please continue.
My son's name is Chris Stone. He was murdered May the 18th, 2018 at the Santa Fe school mass shooting in Texas. He is an actual hero that day. He saved 7 students by holding the doors shut, and 7 students got to walk away that day. I can't tell you anything about my son, how he passed away. This is not something that I want to learn in a court setting. I have my heart set on that we will see that day one day, but this is not something I want to learn there. I need to learn it in my own privacy of anywhere they can give it to me. Not knowing what happened to Chris, it keeps me up. When you think that you're having a good day, you get slapped with the reality of what actually happened. And when you don't have those answers, it makes your recovery a lot harder. The one thing that I've learned since I lost my son is that victims lose all their rights. Once they're dead, they don't get their rights back anymore. And that's why I've started my advocacy in making sure that we can give victims their rights back. The minute I lost Chris, I lost all my rights as a parent. And I'm a real good mom. And I shouldn't lose those rights. And I would like those rights back. I hope that y'all can do the least bare minimum by giving us that peace and let us move on and trying to close that chapter in our life and trying to find a way so we can live on with our life, but not living with the unknown. I ask for your vote for this, for it to pass.
Members, any questions? Thank you, ma'am. We thank each of you for being here and for your testimony. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against House Bill 3729? There being none, Chair recognizes Chair Bonin to close.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members, and we truly appreciate your time this afternoon and your consideration. This is obviously a very, very difficult problem that we hope to be able to address. And should any of you or anyone that we haven't heard from today have any concerns, I really look forward to working together to try to overcome them so that we can address this issue. And with that, I close.
Members, any questions? If there's no objection, House Bill 3729 will be left pending. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The House Bill 3729 is left pending.